very good evening. Welcome to State of Business on our television. I'm Ashing Veera Singh. Let's have a look at the headlines first. Central Bank keeps its policy rates unchanged, maintaining accommodative monetary policy stance. Curfew imposed in several areas in Colombo and strict quarantine regulations to be imposed on curfew violators. News in detail. Quarantine curfew was imposed in the Kotahina police area from 6 p.m. today. In the meantime, police spokesman DIG Ajit Rohan said that the quarantine curfew, which was imposed in the Mattakulya, Modara, Vallampitiya, Blue Mandal and Grand Pass police areas in the Colombo district, will be in effect until 5 a.m. on Monday. Quarantine curfew is imposed in few areas in Colombo district since the individuals who had contracted COVID-19 from the Paliaguda fish market have travelled these areas. Police spokesman DIG Ajit Rohan said that even though vehicles are permitted to pass through the curfew-imposed areas, the vehicles are not allowed to stop at the curfew-imposed areas. Moreover, he further said that 596 curfew violators have been arrested with 76 vehicles taken into custody as of 6 a.m. today morning. In the meantime, the tally of COVID-19 infections in the country rose as 50 more individuals were tested positive for the virus as of 3 p.m. today. Fresh cases include 22 from garment factories in Kadunayaka, 6 from Paliaguda Fish Market and 22 close contacts, Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva said. Thereby, the total number of positive cases reported from the Minuwanguda COVID-19 cluster has surpassed 2,550. Army Commander Shavendra Silva added that 186 COVID-19 contracted persons from the Minuwanguda cluster have recovered from the COVID-19. He further requests persons who have visited the Paliaguda fish market within the past week to contact their nearest public health inspector to conduct a PCR test. Moreover, 60 individuals infected with COVID-19 have made complete recoveries today, says the Ministry of Health. COVID-19 recoveries confirmed in Sri Lanka thereby reached 3,561. Also, Export Development Board announces that export companies in Gampaha district and curfew areas can operate during the curfew time period. Export companies in the Gampaha district can continue to operate during the curfew period, strictly following the COVID-19 health guidelines and all preventive measures for the pandemic with consent from the relevant health authorities. EDB says it is ready and willing to facilitate the issuing of curfew passes and asks the relevant people to contact EDB Help Desk via 011 2300 710 or helpdesk@edb.gov.lk or www.srilankabusiness.com. The vote on the draft bill of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution was scheduled to be held at the Parliament at 7:30 p.m. today. Parliamentarians from all the parties commenced the debate on the proposed bill last morning and continued the debate for the second consecutive day today. The committee stage of the proposed 20th Amendment is expected to commence at 7:30 p.m. post the debate, and the legislators will vote on the draft bill thereafter. Minister of Justice, President's Counsel Ali Sabri presented the draft bill to the House yesterday and told the House that it will be amended to limit the Cabinet of Ministers to 30 portfolios with another 40 non-cabinet portfolios, and the emergency bills will be limited to cases of national disaster or events affecting national security, among other amendments. Delivering his speech to the House, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa had said the 20th Amendment to the Constitution is brought into force to remove the 19th Amendment, which turned the country into anarchy. The main opposition in the Parliament, Samagi Jana Balawegaya, has already expressed their agitation over the draft 20th Amendment and invited all MPs to vote against it. The UNP, although it has failed to name its representative in Parliament yet, called on all members of Parliament, including those from the government benches, to vote against or refrain from voting in favour of this bill, which threatens the democratic foundation that Sri Lanka has been built upon. Government camp parliamentarians such as Vimal Weerawansa, Udaya Gambampila, Vasudeva Nanaikara, who expressed their displeasure on the draft bill of the 20th Amendment, holding a special press briefing this morning, announced that as President Gotabaya Rajapaksa promised to bring a new constitution soon, they will be voting with the government side. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka has decided to continue its accommodative monetary policy stance by maintaining the current levels of standing deposit facility rate at 4.5% and the standing lending facility rate at 5.5%. The Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka arrived to this decision at its meeting held yesterday. Maintaining the standing deposit facility rate and the standing lending facility rate of the central bank at their current levels of 4.5% and 5.5% respectively, the central bank assures in continuing to monitor domestic and global macroeconomic and financial market developments and take further measures appropriately to ensure that the economy promptly reverts to a sustained high real GDP growth path while maintaining inflation in the 4 to 6% range. Monetary Board also has decided to maintain the bank rate at 8.5% and statutory reserve ratio at 8.5%. Moreover, the central bank said the average weighted prime lending rate declined to historic lows in recent weeks, while new lending rates also adjusted downward in line with the expectations to the central bank. The release of GDP estimates for the second quarter of 2020 by the Department of Census and Statistics has been delayed, and the CBSL says it is likely that the second quarter of 2020 has recorded a greater contraction than in the first quarter, followed by a recovery in the third quarter of the year. Moreover, the CBSL states that following the contractions recorded in the preceding 3 months, credit disbursed to the private sector expanded notably in August 2020, reflecting the impact of low lending rates as well as a concessional credit scheme. Stay tuned for more news after this short break. Welcome back after the break. The Colombo stock market underwent one of its major falls in recent months of over 4% yesterday, with the bourse ending on a negative note since the ASPI decreased by 4.21% or 249.56 points to close at 5,684.67 points, while the S&P SL 20 index also decreased by 4.19% or 99.96 points to close at 2,287.6. The negative trend on the Colombo stock market witnessed yesterday was due to the spike in COVID-19 cases and the imposition of curfew in several areas in the country. Thereby, the biggest contributors to the fall were John Keats Holdings, Carson, Expo Lanka, LOLC and Commercial Bank. Volume-wise, the food, beverage and tobacco sector conquered with 49 million shares traded, whilst turnover was 400 million rupees. In the meantime, foreign investors remained net sellers with 166.3 million rupees, up from 129.6 million rupees on Tuesday. In the meantime, First Capital said that the index experienced a downtrend since the beginning of the session, mainly due to the selling pressure in the transportation sector, as it recorded its intraday low of 5,668 before closing at 5,685, losing a massive 250 points. Asia Securities added that panic selling by retail investors due to reports of surge in the COVID-19 cases and further containment measures caused the indices to decline, closing in the red. The central bank states that the headline inflation as measured by the year-on-year change in the National Consumer Price Index has marginally increased by 2 decimal points to 6.4% in September 2020 from 6.2% in August 2020, driven by the monthly increases in the prices of both food and non-food categories. Food inflation has decreased to 12.7% in September 2020 from 13.2% in August 2020 due to the statistical effect of the high base prevailed in September 2019, whereas non-food inflation increased to 1.4% in September 2020 from 1.1% in August 2020. The change in the NCPI measured on an annual average basis increased marginally to 6.2% in September 2020 from 6.1% in August 2020. Monthly change of NCPI recorded at 0.8% in September 2020, mainly due to increases observed in prices of items in both food and non-food categories. Accordingly, within the food category, increases were observed mainly in the prices of vegetables, coconut and big onions during September 2020. Further, core inflation increased to 4.8% in September 2020 from 4.6% in August 2020, while annual average core inflation decreased to 4.3% in September 2020 from 4.4% in August 2020. The World Health Organization stresses that COVID-19 is a stark reminder of the devastating effects that tobacco, air pollution and diseases such as tuberculosis can have on our lung health. Thus, Director General of World Health Organization Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus stresses that the world should not drop the guard against the COVID-19.
COVID-19 is a stark reminder that the simple act of breathing is fundamental to life and of the devastating effects of anything that takes our breath away, including tuberculosis, tobacco, and air pollution. This microbe attacks the lungs, but its effects are felt far beyond in families, communities, health systems, societies, and economies. The pandemic also compounds the tobacco epidemic, with smokers more likely to develop severe disease with COVID-19. The pandemic will end, but TB, tobacco, air pollution, and other lung diseases will continue to steal the breath and life of millions of people every year. COVID-19 is reminding us all that life is fragile and health is the most precious commodity on earth. Together, we must harness the same urgency and solidarity with which the world is fighting COVID-19 to make sure everyone, everywhere can breathe freely and cleanly.
We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back after the break. The trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a positive note today. The all-share price index gained 87.22 points to close at 5,771.89 and the S&P SL 20 gained 7.29 points to close at 2,294.89. The turnover was 2.2 billion rupees and over 147 million shares were traded. Up next are Forex rates. And that's all the news for today. Join us tomorrow with State of Business at the usual time. Until then, take care. Good night.